Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fifth episode of this special series on inclusion for the Jeune Chambre de Commerce de Montréal podcast. My name is Tracy Paulotte. I'm head of programs at Fondation Dynastie, and I'm also a volunteer project lead at la Jeune Chambre de Commerce de Montréal. Today, I have the pleasure of hosting a conversation with Nathon Kong, entrepreneur and founder of the brand Maison Nathon Kong. In this episode, we'll explore storytelling, a tool for inclusion. Nathan, welcome. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start with the beginning. So you were born in Thailand, and then what?
Actually, yes, that's correct. I'm actually Chinese Thai. I grew up in a single mom family, and I have three sisters. So my mom was such an inspiration to raise us, and I've actually learned my English in India. At the age of 14, I had an opportunity to go to India, and I wanted to speak English. So I grew up 5 years in India from the age of 14 to 19. So I was in boarding school, and believe it or not, I actually learned French in India.
Did you?
And then not knowing that I would end up in Quebec, I thought I would be done with second language, third language.
At this point.
And then I came to Canada, and then not knowing that Quebec actually speak French. And then I came to Canada in 2003. I was an international student. I went to McGill. I studied microbiology and management minor. I spent most of my early career in research and hospital and in research center. And later on, I went to do my MBA, and I further went to pharmaceutical industry. And then I started my business 14 years ago.
Well, we will definitely go back to that because there's a lot to unpack. But I kind of want to bring you back to some of the things that maybe, like you said, you weren't necessarily thinking that you would move to Canada one day having to speak French. How was that transition from home to Quebec for you?
I was an adventurous child. I think at the age of 14, I just wanted to speak English, and knowing that if I stayed in Thailand, my English wouldn't have been that great. And to be honest, study English in India, it is cheaper than study English in Canada. So I thought I was lucky, and then I was dedicate myself to make sure I get a good grades. And I came to McGill, and McGill was a good school, and I got into a science program, microbiology, and I stayed. But you're 100% correct. I was 14, I was 19. I didn't plan my career. I didn't plan my life that I would end up in Canada. But when you finish your school, you start thinking that how do you want to live your life? What do you want to do? I don't think many 14-year-old boy would think, what would I want to do when I grow up? You just want to study, and hopefully that will open doors that will allow you to make the right decision, or allowing you to have more option to make the decision that you wanted. I came to Canada, it was cold, and I fell in love with Quebec. I thought Quebec was very interesting. I loved the complexity of the diversity in terms of it's not only the fact it's very multinational, the language play into the role, and it's very acceptance. But of course, there's always room to improve. But I thought Quebec was special to me because I relate myself to Quebec, actually. I did give the interview with CBC a few years ago, asking that how would I feel that you are different? And I did a lot of research asking my friends who actually grew up here, and people who actually wasn't born here but grew up here. They say, and for their entire life, they wanted to fit in. In fact, the fact that I don't fit in and I'm different is actually my power, because that's what the comfort I grew up. I was always different.
I hear that a lot in what you've shared so far, because I feel like, you said something about being 14 and not necessarily knowing what you should be doing for the rest of your life. But there was this motivation that you got from somewhere. I know you spoke about your mom and your sisters. You were very determined at a young age to follow a path that will eventually lead you somewhere.
I would say my mother was a big inspiration. I didn't realize that back then how difficult it is to have 4 kids and a single mom. Now that at my age today, I come to realize I don't think I can do what my mom did. But you knew, and I saw how hard my mom worked. She did everything for us. I wanted to make her proud, and I want to make sure that I am independent when I grew up. And the only path for me to continue at that time was to go to good school.
And how was your relationship with your parents? So you talk about your mom. We haven't talked about your father.
My father passed away when I was 5. So I do not remember much about him. I only see pictures. And he was sick. He had cancer. And he passed away when I was 5. And I have 2 older sisters and 1 younger. So I did not remember much about my father, but a lot of my childhood, I remember my mother, and she only worked, and you saw how hard she worked, and you want to lessen the burden that, so the thing is, you just have to, and as any child, you want to have got a decent grade and prove it to them that, you raised her to go to school, and that's what it will allow us to have the tools to be whatever we want to be, right?
I come from a big family, so I totally understand what you mean. And I think it's very honorable from you to want to pursue that in some way, to see how can I make my mother proud for all the sacrifices that she's done for me. And so that brings you to Quebec, the beautiful province of Quebec, where you already had, I think, I'll say a one-up. I think it's very difficult for people to come here that don't speak French. So you spoke French, you spoke English, you spoke probably Thai. So you come here and you study. And did you study? You didn't stop, and you didn't choose the easiest, the easiest field to study in.
Right.
So where did that come from? This, I guess, I'll call it a passion at first for pharmaceutical.
To be honest, and again, this is really funny. When you were coming to Canada, and what do you want to study? All I knew was I'm good in science, or I like to study science. And God, I told my mother I want to be an artist when I was much younger. I did not get a good reaction.
Yeah, we know those.
And then I remember I chose microbiology, and to be honest, I thought it sounded cool. I didn't know what I will do, but all I know it sounded really smart. I remember telling my mother that I'd be studying microbiology, and she thought I'd be making yogurt for the rest of my life. And I told my mother that I can do so much more than that. But in science, people often think that when you study something, you will end up working in that field. And if you look around, people around you, how many people actually study something and be something, right? When you study, there are, I call it a technical, a specialized skill, like engineer, dietitian, nurses. But when you study science, like I studied microbiology, but there are biochemistry. What is the difference of microbiology and biochemistry?
What is it?
So I felt like science is a technical skill, but it's not specialized enough for me to continue my career. I could become a microbiologist, but if you continue your degree in science, usually you need to do the master and you do a PhD. When I finished my undergrad, I realized that I have no patience, because being a scientist, you have to be very curious. You want to find out. You will invest. You will be patient in order for you to find out. I was not interested so much in finding out. I'm more doing. So that was a frustration part that I come to realize that that's not the path for me. But I try to use my skill that I've learned, to continue my career. It's allowed me to be disciplined. It allowed me to think like a scientist. You form hypothesis and then you use factual to make your decision. That's something I got from science degree. That sometimes people think that they waste their 4 years to study undergrad, but there's no such thing as waste. You will get something out of it. And then there are skills that you can collect and hone and allow you to continue. Like I mentioned, that when you study something, it doesn't mean that you have to be that, right? So just be open, be patient, something will come along.
And thank you for that, because I think, especially for people our age or our generation, with the world constantly evolving, it almost seems like when you do something, it has to have a direct result,
right,
or it has to be effective or productive. And so studying is important, and it's a transferable skill, no matter what you go into. And that's very interesting, because you went from pharmaceuticals to fashion. What happened in between?
I think fashion, I like pretty things, not gonna lie. I always want to make things more beautiful, so I don't think I was a fashion guy. I thought, I could make a difference. And in terms of my design, it's always a story behind that, why I did what I'm doing. So I found a way that I can make a difference for myself and to a community by starting a business in design. So I started a business in making custom-made suits. The idea was I don't want people to consume. I want people to have emotion attachment to clothing. Because if you attach, like you probably have a few t-shirts or a few clothing items that you kept it for years. Maybe someone gave that to you. Maybe you love it so much you don't want to throw it away. And I was drawn to that. And I remember getting, when you finish school, you start getting interview, you want to look your best. And that's when it hit me.
Really?
That I couldn't find anything that fits. And I was dreadful the experience to shop. I have a smaller frame, but I want to look good, but I didn't know how. And that was my frustration. That was my problem. And then I thought, like, I'm not the only one. So how can I make a difference? Then things start to evolve. You start thinking like, okay, if you want people to have emotional attachment to the things, so how do I do that? By making something custom made. It's of course very special, more expensive. And if you buy something that have, I guess, highest price tag, I hope that, you will not throw that away so easily, but it's go beyond that. So in my concept, yes, there's a session that I need to understand really quickly in terms of what they want. They may know or they may not know, but that's my part to make them look beautiful. And any good design is not the look, it's the feeling. How can I design something that make them feel really special when they create my design? It goes on with the process, right? The technical in terms of the fabric, the pattern. But I come to realize that I love art. I love Montreal. How can I combine all of these into one? So what I did, I was blessed that I get to collaborate and work with an organization called Les Impatients. It's an organization that has been over 30 years helping Quebecer, people who are participant or artist or patient that want to express themselves in other form than just speaking. They provide atelier for this participant to express through drawing as a therapeutic art program that you might have heard. It's allowed them to express themselves through art. And I want to tell the story of Quebec, of my participant, of my artist to my client. They come to me, they just want a beautiful suit. but I want to give them so much more. So what I do is, like the suit I'm wearing is actually a painting from the participant. I will show the artwork to my client. I will tell the story of my artist. And every piece is numbered, that they get piece 1 out of 5, 10 out of 20. And and their name is written inside. So I want them to not grateful, but appreciate art. But it's not just, they're not artists to become an artist. They're just somebody like us. And I want my customer to understand the story. And it's not just about the artist, it's the struggle of mental health that they go through. And I want them to relate. And I want mental health to be normalized. I don't want it to be a taboo. I want to show the practical, beautiful side of mental health could create. And we're all related. We don't want to talk about it. But I want to give my creation as a platform for them to talk about this to people in that network. Look, I'm wearing a beautiful suit. It's made by Nathon Kong. But, and this is what I'm focusing on. I want to show them the beautiful part of community of Montreal. And when people support me, I do donate. So proceed to go back to Les Impatients. Up to date, I think we have given, I don't know, I think over 50, 60, 70, 80,000 so far with every other collaboration. But it's not about organization with Les Impatients don't care about the money, but they want to tell the story.
When I hear your love for fashion or your need to go into fashion, I'm noticing a few things. First of all, the methodology of a scientist, how you applied it to the process. You thought about everything, and most importantly, how to have a real impact into what, not just, okay, I have a need, how can I address the need, but how can I help others? And it speaks on who you are, your heart, probably the way that you're navigating life. And I kind of want to go back to that, to who you are, because at the root, you're doing all those beautiful things for, and it is a cause that we'll have to talk more about, because you shared a lot of things that I thought were very interesting and touching and people have to know about. But you, Nathan, at the end of, not the end of the day, but within who you are, how was that shift for you to going into studying into a business that was very practical and very, like you said, rigid, and into going into a world of fashion and bringing that into community?
I think you're flattering me. I don't think I'm that I'm that smart. I think, like every business, right? You have to find a way that your business must be viable. And, you be living and breathing that business day in and day out. It becomes your identity. You need to be comfortable. You need to believe in it. I'm not that smart in terms of I didn't figure it out on the first moment. I tried. I make some mistake. I adapt. It's a journey to understand myself, what I wanted to do, what makes me happy. Because sometimes I got lost in translation that I just want to grow my business. But sometimes that I come to realize that what's more important is I need to be passionate in what I do. And you start digging inside that what is that make you happy? It's evolving. It's a much harder conversation because we tend to think we understand yourself. I still don't. It's a journey that I'm trying to understand myself, to try to navigate through life, but I want to make a difference to myself as a first step. How can I make a difference to other people? Of course, it feels a lot more purposeful. It's evolving. And this is a difference I could make today. Because, starting a business is you look into what you can do today. You need to live today. You have a goal where you want to be and you build a step to get there. And you start the journey as you walk, as you take a step. You start to realize that how to walk better, how to walk more prouder, how to improve the way that you run your business and understand yourself is one step forward, two step back, one step forward. It's been 14 years I started my business. I'm grateful that I'm still here. But in the same time, there's a big adjustment along the way to get here. And a lot of it is to understand yourself. It's not easy, but you need to adapt and grow.
And do you want to maybe share with us some of those hurdles? Because I feel like we talk a lot about, and I have to say thank you for sharing that, because there is two sides and more sides to the story of entrepreneurship. But what were those hurdles that you had to face in discovering yourself and understanding yourself and having to apply that to your entrepreneurial journey?
I think, when you start a business, people have goals. They want to, I talk to my friends. They want to build a company. They want to have many employees. If you're tech, you want to grow and perhaps sell the business. And I wasn't one of those people. I think I was naive. I just want to do today my best. And we start growing a team. And as you know, COVID hit. It changed the way how we look into life. That's when, things changed so drastically. We were not outside our home for 2 years. My thought was, how do I keep my team? How do I sustain my business? How do I remain relevant? We pivot, we change. But at the end, I come to realize that as an entrepreneur, it become my identity. Is my ego. And I forgot myself in between. And that's when I started digging deep to understand myself, that what is that I wanted to do? What is that? How do I realign my life in order for me to make a difference and be happy in whichever form that takes? And you may have plans, and life never go according as plans. It changes, and the only thing that we can is adapt and grow. So it has been a difficult journey, and many things happen. For example, personally, I started doing renovation 3 years ago, and I got scammed, lost a lot of money, and it's impacted my business and my personal life. But we need to move on. When bad stuff happen to us, I've learned that you need to be positive, and I cannot allow bad things to become my identity. I refuse to act like a victim. Same thing that, I remember giving a talk in a conference, and there's a little girl. She said she was very proud of me that, I'm English speaker, I'm not Caucasian, I'm not from here, and I started my business. And I looked at her and said, why do you say that? She said, I'm different, and I felt like I was not giving opportunity. And I told her, that's not true. When bad stuff happened to you, I told myself I need to work harder for me to overcome a problem. I may acknowledge that I may not get the same opportunity like everyone else, but I will work twice harder in order to prove to myself that I can do this. It's the same thing I started the business. The main reason why I started my business, I want to make my mother proud. I admire my mother. She's an entrepreneur, and I want to be like her. But people ask me that why do I start my business? People will tell me I want to be my own boss. Not for me. I was an ungrateful millennial who I thought I can do everything. And I thought I'm tired of complaining to myself that my boss is not giving me opportunity. And I thought, you know what? If I start my business, if I failed, I have no one else to blame but me. And that was the reason why I wanted to show it to myself that I can do this.
And show it to others.
That's correct. It's more deep down, it's more for me. I may not realize it at the time, but I do this, as you age, you want to start looking into life that what can you do to make sure you have no regrets, and making a decision that I always tell people, you may not know where you want to go. It's hard. How can you know? But you always know what you don't want to do. And I try to ask myself, what can I do to make sure I have no regret? So, and I make decision based on that.
That's very beautiful. And that brought you to, and that's what has brought you into the journey of Maison Nathon Kong and all the beautiful work that you do with Des Impatients and the cause that's behind it, which is to support and put forward mental health and art. So how do you experience that today? Are you proud of yourself?
I would like to. I'm still very hard with myself. Life is about, if you're not growing, you're dying. So I'm not saying that in terms of your personal growth. And for me, I want to continue evolving and growing and improving, not in terms of the business, not only that. I'm talking about my journey, personal journey of growth. I need to always, be reflective of who I am. And with everything that's around me, you're allowed to make only decision basing on what has given to you. Sometimes it's a right decision in terms of easier to get ahead. And sometimes you run into a different obstacle. So for me, I would say that it's a work in progress, but I need to be patient with myself. So I'm very grateful. I can't say that I'm proud, but I'm happy that I'm working towards it. So it's an ongoing process.
Ongoing process, which is your word today. Literally the theme that I'm seeing, that I'm hearing. With you doing so many things and wearing so many hats, or having worn so many hats as a researcher, mentor, speaker, what would be the common thread for you in those different identities that you are?
Myself. Like I mentioned, it's an ongoing process because to understand myself, it's the same, right? When do you say like, oh, are you successful? I feel uncomfortable. Like I don't think, like I said, it's the ongoing process. What is the definition? And say, are you rich? What is rich to you? Like you need to have certain amount, but people have different situation. So that's why it's very difficult to define who you are because there's no, if you made this, you are successful. If you're this, you're happy. For example, you look at happiness. It's not an end goal. Happiness is a journey, right? It's not because I'm happy, I made it. It's a journey every day for you to be happy. And that's why for me, you start becoming old when you stop learning, when you stop growing, right? You take whatever journey that you have, whatever experience you have, you apply to yourself. And you want to do that your best and be the best version of who I am, basing on the tools that I acquired, different mindset that apply to myself. So that's why a lot of it is work in progress. And that's why for me, like, I can't say like I'm there because I'm never there. I'm there when I'm dead. So I will always want to be better in whichever form that is in terms of my identity, my career, my mindset, happiness, satisfaction. So it's about working at it. And I don't think I will ever stop working at it because the moment I stop, I think I'd be dead.
And, in French, we say, si jeunesse savait, si vieillesse pouvait. Do you feel like that would be your message to the next generation?
Yes, there's many messages to leave. But for me, I often tell younger people than me that be patient with yourself. Everything takes times. There's no success overnight. It takes dedication. It takes commitment. It takes belief with a little bit of luck and naiveness. I cannot guarantee that one can be successful, but I can tell you that the experience thrown at you, it will allow you to grow in whichever way that is. And you have to be grateful that, we're here, we're breathing and we're healthy and take care of ourselves mentally and physically. And don't forget that you are a person and you're still here, which means that you still have ability to work and improve.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I feel like there would be so much to say. You shared with us your upcoming with your mother being a model and your determination through it all, from Thailand to India to Canada, and switching from a field to another, and also having, I would say, a great impact in what you're doing, because you made a conscious choice to work with Les Impatients and other organizations, have an impact. And by working with people that are in need, I would say, and giving back, I feel like you're following your purpose the best way that you can. And I hope that you know that, if anything, you should be proud of yourself.
Oh, that's very kind. I'll say that to my mother.
And I think you're a true example of what it is to lead with a story. Is there anything that you feel that we left out? Honestly?
I just want to think like how, because I want to listen to people who actually moved here.
Mm-hmm.
Look at you.
Mm-hmm.
We all, like, my story is not that special. It's just one of the story. I want to be helpful in terms of, people who's not from here and they feel different, and it's okay to be different.
There's power in being
It's
different.
power to be different. And, you're not trying to fit in. It's okay to be different and accept it, and make sure that you will accept the difference from other people.
And
Yeah.
follow your own journey.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Nathan. It was amazing. I wish we could keep you for longer. But we'll talk.
Of course.
We'll talk.
Of course. Thank you for having me today.